Let's check in with the doc and look at things with a wider lens. Pastor Richards on OMG.
All right, joining us right now is Pastor Richards. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Denise. How are you this morning?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, actually.
That's good.
Playful, but it's good to have things to do that make you feel that you're accomplishing something with the short time you have on this earth.
and I hear that the devil makes use of idle hands or something of that sort, something like that.
Don't remind me. My auntie used to tell me that. I don't know why she thought I had idle hands, but she always would tell me the devil finds work for idle hands to do. I don't know. Yeah, you sound. I have been listening since this morning, off and on, mostly on than off. You sound revived with your one day off.
My son is being baptized today. I am in a fantastic mood. Nothing could make nothing. There's nothing much that can. Yeah, so that's the secret behind my. It doesn't matter how I'm feeling.
You're gonna bring that boy up right, aren't you?
Oh, of course. There's no questions about it.
You could do a whole program on this, Jenny. Like when I did the program and I talked about my daughter a little bit, those are the things we like to talk about because that's how you change society one child at a time. I really believe that. If you sow into them the right values all across this country of ours, then that's how you change the nation from the cradle. So parents listening to this, do it right. Do it right. So one day off, Jerry also, I have to admit that he sounded energized this morning.
Yes.
He was really, I think he took it right up to the top of the hour.
Yes, he did. Literally right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
So I'm thinking, you sound revived with one day off. Jerry sounds energized with a week off. I don't know where he went and whatever he was doing, but he took a week off. Can you imagine how Bing is going to sound when he comes back? Because his has not been a day or a week. So.
His has been forever. I'll tell you that much.
He's going to be. I hope he's taking care of himself so that whenever he comes back on, he is going to have all of the energy and that. He can actually contain that energy that he has and not really push himself to the limit like he's wont to do.
I know.
Having said that, I'm missing two of the regulars, come to think of it. I hope they're doing well. Two of the persons who used to call in, Dave Roberts. I don't know what is why he's not calling in and making a contribution. I don't know if it's that he just calls in because he likes to fight up with Bing.
Could be that. I don't encourage fighting up, so.
Yeah. And then the second person, I used to call in fairly regularly, once or twice a week, MacArthur Young.
Yes.
So I trust wherever he is. Yeah. What's that?
The Truth Seeker.
That's it. Okay. Yeah. I trust that wherever he is, he's doing okay. I know.
That is true.
I know he's somewhere in North America, and that's where a lot of this COVID thing is being seeming to linger more than any other parts of the world, to be quite honest with you. And not that it's not in Brazil or in Britain or anywhere else, but for some reason it's just lingering in that part of the world. So I trust MacArthur is doing well. Been listening to the interesting discussion on Liat. I try to stay out of these things as much as possible. Have you noticed that, Denise?
Yes, and I understand and I appreciate it. It's good to bring,
but let me say a couple of things here, because I listened to Stephen, what he shared, and Mr. Weeks also, even this morning too. He always has an interesting perspective, and I keep saying listen to him because you learn when you listen. And again, even when you don't agree with everything he says, man, he tries to be thoughtful, and some accuse him of being biased, and then I say, but all of us have our bias. It's just that we don't like his bias, or his bias might not match my bias. So, fair is fair, really, fair is fair. And then Jerry seems to be doing a lot of. Ever since I've listened to Jerry commenting on Liat, he seems to bring more to the table than more information to the table than we are normally used to. So I have been listening and I've been learning from all three of them, Stephen and Mr. Week and Jerry. And as I listen, there's some thought-provoking perspectives that I have. I don't really want to add to what Jerry or Mr. Weeks or Stephen have said, but there's some perspectives that I want us to think about. Now, the first thing that I want us to think about is the whole ethics. Now, follow me. The whole ethics of keeping a non-viable entity on life support. Now, the reason why that intrigues me because these are discussions that I have in counseling from time to time, and even when I teach counseling students, these are some of the moral and ethical issues that we debate because you keeping someone, let me take it from a counseling perspective first, keeping someone on a life support, even if they're in a vegetative state, and the chances of their survival are basically minimal. And the only reason why they're able to stay afloat, as it were, and not be pronounced dead is because they are placed on a ventilator. Take that off, and that entity, that person dies. And we've had these discussions in counseling, particularly when you have had a relative in chronic pain, chronic illness, and some people, if you have never gone through this, if you've never seen up close a loved one suffer, you have no idea of how draining it is. It is a horrible, horrible experience. And when you love your family or relative and you see them going through this, you just want them. You just want them to be gone. It sounds cruel. So we have had terms that have been developed. We have used and debated euthanasia, mercy killing, and stuff like that. We have talked about that. And there are some people who embrace the whole idea of mercy killing. There are some people who consider the fact that, to keep my loved one on a ventilator, or to keep them alive, or to keep them doped up on morphine or whatever pain-reducing drug, whenever that wears off, they're screaming and crying for more. It's an agonizing experience, and so for some people, the most viable course of action is, let me just say, mercy killing. Let them go. Just let them go. That's the best thing they can do. Number one, you take them out of their pain. Number two, this may sound real callous, but it is true, because again, in counseling, I have seen people spend a lot. This is the difficult thing for me to go through. Spend everything, leverage everything, mortgage everything for a loved one. Sometimes, and then you have other dependents that and then the loved one dies, and then because healthcare is a very, very expensive thing. And then for all that you have leveraged, for all that you have put into the care of the loved one, trying to keep them alive for a year or two, even with the pain and all of that, hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're gone, and then you're left to struggle, and your dependents are left to struggle for the rest of your life. And some people, that I read about, and not here in St. Vincent, let me make this very clear, but in the case studies, that I've read, this is a real hard thing to do, because the opportunity cost of life support, that's an economic term, by the way, the opportunity cost, meaning if you use this set of resources here, then you can't use it there. And the opportunity cost of life support is very, very high. And some of the things that will have to be foregone, education for children, provision of children, even a home and security and all of that. Sometimes you give up these things to support a life. And therefore the choice is, for some it's ethical, for some this is absolutely immoral and maybe even outside the bounds of ethic. Take them off the ventilator and utilize the resources elsewhere. Also, you have the added benefit of taking them out of their pain. Now, why do I say all of this, Daniel? Because, and I'm spinning off what Jerry said this morning. I was thinking about it, but he put it nicely. For all who have watched Liat has been kept on life support for a long time. The reason why I say, and everybody knows this, so I'm not saying anything revolutionary or anything new or anything startling. This is not rocket science. This is just fact. Liat has been on life support for a long time. Ever so often you hear the government taking X amount of millions and throwing it into that support. And frankly speaking, like anyone on life support, truth be told, if you ask the question, could Liat have survived if you took Liat off of the government's ventilator support? Could Liat have survived? And the answer is very evident that Liat could not have survived, as you're seeing now. So then we are beginning to wonder, why wasn't this done sooner? Well, in the same way that there are reasons why people do not go for mercy killing, do not support euthanasia or anything like that, it is the same reason. There are really good reasons why the government, and we have to understand, there are really good reasons why the government kept Liat afloat. Even if it may have been a non-viable entity without the life support. There are other values that people don't get, other immediate values that Liat brought. It's the same way with life. Life has value, and therefore, even if a man is in pain, even if a man is suffering, even if a man can't breathe without a machine, the fact that his life represents something of intrinsic value, you just don't want to end it. And in the same way, I have to feel that Liat embodied something that the Caribbean, those islands that were utilizing his services, needed. The connectivity between the islands and all that represents ease of travel, facilitating trafficking, facilitating, like Jerry said, business, U.S. Embassy and all of that. So, it was an entity that was valuable, and even if it was hurt and bleeding out and all of that, you just had a hard time doing the mercy killing. And but it seems to me that the hands have been forced, and this mercy killing or euthanasia of Liat is imminent. And I say imminent because it's not a done deal. I haven't heard anyone say that it's a done deal. I understand that it is in the works. I understand that it is likely to happen. And some are going to be very relieved at this. Some are going to appreciate the fact that resources that would have been thrown into keeping Liat on life support could be redirected. Some are going to be relieved that the opportunity cost of this life support is going to be, foregone, and they're going to be relieved. So those are some of the thoughts that I've been thinking about. Well, is it a good thing that? Go ahead, Denise. I thought you asked a question.
No. Go ahead.
Is it a good thing that they're contemplating removing the life support in a sort of mercy killing kind of way? But the second thing that I have to reflect on, like I said, these are just reflections, things to make me think, is in this whole thing, Daniel, it is evident to me the absence of the will of the people with respect to how Liat goes. There's nothing that I see that is happening in Liat that reflects this is the will of the people. Now you have to understand that the people represents the market, and the shareholders and governments involved in Liat, they are basically the service supplier or the service providers. But Liat presents, and this is going to have implications down the road with respect to who comes in to fill the void. And from my background in economics, having taught it for a number of years, there are some things that I'm thinking of. I don't want to do an economic lesson here, but at the same time, I know there are some things that describe the market currently that Liat historically has had to deal with that are not going to change because Liat goes away. Now bear that in mind. And the thing that Liat had to contend with, and I watch, is this inability of the market to influence the service supply. Mark that word, mark that phrase, the inability of the market to influence the service supply. In economics, we use the term elasticity of demand. which is the extent to which demand moves up or down depending on various stimulus or stimuli provided, whether low in price or complementary goods or, just, I don't want to get into it. But once market is inflexible, which I think the LIAT market is largely inflexible. People don't just get up and say, well, I'm going to travel. People who travel by LIAT, and well, people, whether it's LIAT or other means, people who travel are people who must travel. Let me see if I can make a comparison. It's like using salt. Salt has an inflexible inelastic demand, for example. If the price of salt drops, you're not going to put more salt in your food. You're not going to buy more salt and say, wow, salt cheap, let me use more. Daniel, I don't know if you're following. There are some things that, you don't just, in other words, the amount you use is the amount you use is the amount you use, and it doesn't change. And for, I'm overgeneralizing, but this is the kind of market LIAT has. People don't just up and travel, and like when I'm in the United States, I go here, there, and everywhere, drive, and you. But here with flying, I don't know if it's fair flying or whatever the case may be, or maybe the complementary goods that are related to flying being you have to find a place to stay, you have a hotel cost, you have taxi costs, you have service costs. So even if you drive down the price of the flight per se, you still have attendant costs, complementary costs or complementary goods that their prices are rising. So even changing the price of a flight does not necessarily provoke people to say, yeah, I'm going to start traveling, because they have to think about hoteling and play. And there's a bunch of other complementary things. So basically what I'm saying is that, look, the point I want to make, I think you got it, is that the market has been inflexible and stayed or static, inelastic and not moving. And because of that, the will of the people has not been necessarily observed by LIAT operators or by the board or by the government. It's often a supplier's paradise to have inflexible demand. Come what may, people are going to buy your product. Come what may, people are forced to use your product. So come what may, you don't have to listen to their voices. In the example that I use, salt, if the price of salt goes up, people are still going to buy salt. So you know that you have a reliable market. It might not be what it can be, but it is there. So changes in price are not really going to cause people, those who have to use your product, to back off. If people have complained all along this process, Daniel, taxes, I've heard it over and over again. Jerry said it, Stephen said it. The price of the ticket is $100. The price that I have to pay is $300. What happened? Government put on $180 in taxes, close to $200 in taxes. Fact. But guess what? You still travel. Inelastic demand. And because usually consumers and the market is able to affect the service provider when there is elastic demand. We just happen to be in a case where this is our market structure, and you have to travel, you have to go for a visa, you have to go trafficking, you have to make a connecting flight because the Saturday timing useful to your schedule, not helping. So you have to use LIAT. So you don't really have a voice. So that is part of the condition that I think is affecting the LIAT market structure. And I have remarked, over as I watch this play out, I'm like, but this is one of these things that the consumer, the market really doesn't have a voice. Even as this thing is unfolding right now, it is more of a top-down approach where the government, we get stuff from Dr. Gonsalves and others who are making their comments, and they tell us what they have done. We don't really have a voice in this. Consumers really never had a voice in LIAT, you hear me? Never had a voice. And this is something, bear that in mind, because that's not something that is connected merely to LIAT. This is something that is an inherent condition in our market. So even if LIAT goes, bear this in mind, that this condition is going to remain. I'll come back to that. And then the other thing that I have reflected on related to this whole LIAT situation is the release of information, let me call it that. We are getting information. Basically, to me, it is timed, what is said. And I ask myself, who has been privy to this information before we get it? Which players? I just asking myself these things because this is my nature to ask it as an economics teacher, understanding insider trading. Some of my listeners understand insider trading. Those who don't understand it, I'm not going to give you the economic lessons, but you can look it up. The way insider trading works. Insider trading works to the benefit of unscrupulous investors and people who want to get a jump on the market. To make a profit. I say unscrupulous, basically it's profiteering. When I say unscrupulous, I mean people who want to work the market and get early information, whether to dump stock or to buy stocks or whatever the case may be, to put more in their pocket. And insider information is a valuable thing in profiteering and in investment. And it happens in every single enterprise. If a tongue is going to do rezoning, people get that information ahead of time to start making business decisions. If a new road is going to be put in cross country or from one zoning area to another zoning area, there are people on the city board, I'm referring outside of St. Vincent, who who know this information ahead of time and begin to line up their investment ahead of time. And in every market, it's the same. The people on the ground, like you and myself this morning, we are hearing things that investors are already knowing about and have already drawn up a game plan. So to me, the situation is similar to the wake of a ship passing, and you only feel the wake, the waves after the ship has already passed. And I feel like this is just me. I just feel like with Liat. The way the information is coming about. For example, I saw a letter that said the shareholders are going to meet to decide on the outcome of Liat. You follow me? I think you were referring to that letter this morning, Daniel. Shareholders are going to meet to decide on the outcome of Liat. I bet in some quarters, some people already know what the outcome is going to be and lining up accordingly. The ship will have passed, but those who are in the market, like myself, are going to get that information in the wake of the ships passing, kind of in the similarity to insider trading. And which brings me to the last thing I have the time to say this morning, a bit of a concern for me. I don't see the market changing, the market structure in terms of demand changing a lot. Again, because what are our substitute products? You want to take a ship to go to Trinidad? You want to take a boat from Chateaubriand to St. Lucia and then connect to Dominica? People have to fly. Whether you fly by a 19-seater, 30-seater, a 50-seater, 45-seater, you have to fly. So that contributes to the inelasticity of demand, the lack of viable substitute. And that market condition is not going to change. And then also you have the attendant conditions that I spoke about before of when you fly, it is not just, okay, I leave St. Vincent, I go to Trinidad, I get there. The flight is not only the product. There are many added products, service products to that flight. Again, I don't want to get into too much detail, but they added service products. You had to pay a taxi to the airport. You had to buy doubles at the airport. You have to, go. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? There are a lot of things. You have to find a hotel or somebody to stay by and a whole lot of other stuff. And so you people are dissuaded, and so you're not necessarily going to, which is why Liat was never advertised in big time like other products were being advertised. Liat got it. When a product has inelastic demand, it's pointless to advertise, to put a lot of advertising dollars out there. It just doesn't make sense, because whether you advertise or you don't advertise, you don't get the kind of bang for the buck that other products are getting. There are some products, if the demand is elastic, you advertise, you attract a lot of customers. There are some other products, man, you could advertise the hell out of the thing and it doesn't change anything. That is the nature of Liat's market. People who are coming in to fill this void, whom I don't know, are going to come into this condition of where the demand is inelastic. And that is the part and parcel of my fear, because with this kind of structure, demand structure, it sets itself up to be exploited, unless, of course, the government comes back in again and regulates it to such a degree that you have adequate competition. For example, when Sanford was here, I think those were the days of the lowest fees cost of flight. If the government can so regulate and the market so that we have adequate amount of competition so that no one company takes advantage of the market, the inelasticity. These are concerns I have. Ultimately, somebody, like Jerry said, ultimately somebody is going to come in and fill the void. But it is likely that if certain things are not being done like I refer to, I don't see that from the consuming end, where the customer is concerned, that this is going to be of much benefit to us in terms of the cost of flying. Consider these things. Have a good day.
All right, Pastor. Thanks a lot, okay?
All right, bye.
All right.
Let's check in with the doc and look at things with a wider lens. Pastor Richards on OMG.